So
And you're getting your permit this winter,
um
and that's
yeah.
exciting, right?
I failed the first one, but
I wasn't gonna tell anyone that you failed it.
I can tell, but and I'll take it in a couple of days and get it.
Okay, well, that's
So
a lot of pressure because you're on film now, saying that you're gonna pass your permit test.
yeah,
But
I
that's
got
good. That's good.
it. Yeah.
Well, Carter, I'm gonna talk to Pastor Joel in a minute about prayer.
Hmm.
And we've been doing this thing in our church, that's important to us on 21 Days of Prayer. This is my son Carter. He's 15, will be 16, hard to believe, in just a few
Hmm.
weeks. But talk to us. You've been a part of 21 Days of Prayer, haven't you? And
Yeah.
in fact, it's been really amazing to see a bunch of students and young adults like coming to prayer to it in the morning.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, do you have anything you want to share? Like, what does prayer mean to you? What do you get out of it? What do you like about it? What do you know?
I just felt like obviously like let's say like it's the summertime and most kids want to sleep in, but like when you start off your day at 7 a.m. in the morning and you pray and stuff, it makes your day like relaxing and you know that you like talk to God and know your day's gonna go good. And it's great to see that like a lot of kids would take their time just to wake up early and then they're gonna be like late to school or like it's like a rough thing. So it's good to see that like young people are starting to get into prayer and it's like changing their lives and it's not just like the adults that have like time maybe they can drive there, just like other people don't have a license and stuff, they're willing to take their time to do it.
Yeah, isn't that
So
incredible?
that's great to see.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
One year you made it almost all 21 days, didn't you?
I made like 20 but the last one. So
What happened that one day?
um I don't really remember. That was like the summer of like 2022 or something.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
So we're moving into January, 21 Days of Prayer. What are you looking forward to about it?
Well, basketball season picks up a lot more there.
Yeah.
And my birthday. And then, yeah, I'm going to have to, because I'm homeschooled now, I can make most of the 20 days of prayer. I probably can't make Mondays, but I can make every other day besides Monday.
Yeah, amazing.
So it's going to be really fun. Looking forward to it.
Well, I'm proud of you, and I'm just proud of the culture of our church where there's a bunch of young people and students and teenagers that prioritize prayer and come every morning. Some come with their family, some don't. Some carpool. I see a bunch of them with their school, like backpacks ready. They head out, they come to prayer, and then head home after prayer. How incredible is that?
It's great. I mean, my friends didn't really go that much, but like
He's shouting you out today. Come on.
my friend Judah lives 0.2 miles from chapel, so he walks in like cold weather, and shout out to him for walking there, and it's fun seeing Judah there.
It's amazing.
So.
That's amazing. I know I've driven to church. It'd be like 6:25 in the morning, and I see Judah walking with a backpack up a sidewalk.
He actually got posted on Facebook by some lady posted about him, like this guy has dedication to walk in like 30 degrees to church. So that was really funny to see that Judah was doing that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it was fun.
All right, well, thank you for starting us off. We're gonna let Pastor Joel in, but love you, Carts.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Well, everybody, how fun is that, Joel?
That's awesome. I love it. I love hearing about students walking to church, to come to prayer early in the morning. That is amazing, man.
I know.
I love that. Really, just to see the heart of students, like Carter is mentioning, sacrificing time, during 21 days of prayer, which everybody's doing. But when you see students come in the room, you see the excitement that they bring, the joy that they bring, and they're like energized and they're kind of huddled up in the front. I mean, it spurs on so much in our prayer culture at the church. Big time. It's fun.
It's wild because we've always had a group of older people that love to pray. And so in my mind, growing up in church, I feel like when you think of the prayer people, they tend to be older people.
Yeah.
But to see it catching in people in every age range is like, I don't even know if we had a vision for that. It just happened,
No, even when I grew up in church, I think about my grandmother. She was always on a prayer chain. You remember old school prayer chains, right?
Totally.
And like she'd meet it in the morning for prayer. I mean, you think about it, generations that have gone before us have always dedicated their lives to prayer. And now I think about being at the chapel and in the season of life that our church is in, where there's so many generations of people coming out to pray. And it's incredible when you think about that. And I even just think, what my grandparents sowed into in my own life. Now I'm getting to see that in my kids' life. Yeah. Like my sons, my daughter, they want to come to prayer even before school. And logistically, it's hard to work that all out because of when school starts. But like there's this desire, there's this hunger for them to come and pray. And I just feel like my grandmother's smiling down from heaven, so
Yeah.
excited about that.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about prayer today. And this is for church leaders who maybe want to understand how to create rhythms of prayer.
Yep.
We'll share a little bit about that. But I also thought just our heart, maybe you're trying to grow in prayer, starting a new year, making resolutions and realizing how important a relationship with God is, the spiritual
Yeah.
component, and prioritizing personal communication with God. So I thought we could talk like the church leadership side of it a little bit, but also maybe just some of the heartbeat of it, like what is the like what makes prayer special, and
Yeah.
what is in our hearts to learn to communicate with God. I heard Leonard Ravenhill said that you can tell how popular a pastor is by who attends on Sunday morning, but you can tell how popular God is by how many go to the prayer meeting.
Man, that's so true. It's so true.
And that's one of the things that's really been a miracle in our church is the culture really over the last probably 6-7 years.
Yeah.
Of just growing more and more and catching all of our hearts to be people of prayer.
Yeah. Well, I think about it came from like a place of consistency.
Yeah.
And it still is, when you're consistent, you're creating these rhythms, you're creating these expectations even in your own heart. So I think about the first time that we even started to do prayer on like 21 days of prayer, having that rhythm, having that cycle in our church. And we didn't have a lot of people showing up, but we weren't doing it for that reason. We're still not doing it for that reason. We're doing it just because we want to develop just a consistency, a repetition.
Yeah.
And I really believe that reaps a reward that we're now living in. But man, I remember those days back when we were doing prayer and we were like offering it to the church and everybody was coming out to it, but it was sometimes just a very small group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one day there was a small event in the auditorium before. So when we showed up, there were no chairs or not many set up.
That's right.
And it was like, it's no big deal. We can set up 20 chairs or whatever,
That's right.
or 30 chairs or whatever, what was going to be for prayer. And now to see the culture, if you're watching this, you're not part of the chapel. We do 21 straight days, 7 a.m. And then, of course, Sunday church and Saturdays we do at 9. But it's a rhythm of everyday prayer.
Yeah.
And it's a miracle because what time's the worship team and the band get there for pastors who are
I'll tell you, our team will load in at probably around between 5:30, 5:45. We'll start practicing right at 6 o'clock. And like they come energized and they're ready to go and they're excited. In fact, there's so many people that want to serve. Sometimes it's like, how do we get everybody to serve within 21 days of prayer?
So full band, same worship team like experience on a Sunday is 7 a.m. for 21 days. Which I think just sets the tone for like, this is not an afterthought to us. One of the most important things we do. And then it sets the rhythm. We do it twice a year, January and August, but there's something about January.
Yeah.
We had a fasting component, something about the start of the year and trusting God for what's to come. And before we plan, before we lead, before we launch groups, before we roll out new things, like to be people of prayer.
Yeah. It is literally. At the chapel, there's a few things that I love so much. This is one of the things that I look forward to the most all year long. We get to do it in January, we get to do it in August. And of course, I mean, if we're being real, there's a little bit of a grind to it, right? Like every day you're changing your schedule out. Every day you're getting up earlier than you usually get up. But when you are in the rhythm of praying every day, there's a few things that happen, I know, in my life. And I'm sure it happens in people's lives that are part of 21 days of prayer. I think one of those things is like you just develop this closeness with the Lord that is so special.
Yeah.
And it's just repetition, right? It's just consistency. And then also I've even noticed like when I'm praying in 21 days of prayer, like my vocabulary changes. Like I feel like there's an endurance that grows, whereas maybe you spent some time praying before 21 days of prayer, but like now you're praying every day and you're getting more consistent with how long you're praying, what you're praying about, like the words that you're using, the way that you're talking to the Lord. And I feel like it's just something that kind of really stretches our spiritual muscles, if you were, just to kind of grow that prayer language in our lives.
Yeah. I was thinking, Joel, of 1 Kings 5, when God tells David he can't yet build the temple because there are enemies that have to be defeated. And sometimes I think of that when we head into a season of prayer as a church, that before we build, Easter and all the outreaches of the spring and everything, like before we take ground, that prayer is not just communication with God, but confronting the enemy,
that's so true.
defeating things. And there's like this spiritual component. I think even in everything God's doing in our church, that there's something about this principle, you mentioned it, of like first things, doing the first thing, the first the first of our money belongs to God, the first of our year, first of our day
That's right.
there's a spiritual order there.
Yeah.
That when you get that order in place, I think the law, it's like you're lining up with the laws of heaven,
Mm,
and there's something I think deep in our hearts that's been really special to see the church catch
that's
that
right.
and surprise us. In fact, you're right. We did prayer so many times. I think it was like 2 years ago. We're getting ready to do the Monday, and you have like this expectation of how many people come.
Yeah.
And you turn around and you're like, wait, is it Sunday?
I know.
Like, what is
It
happening?
feels that way.
Yeah.
And there's so much joy in the room.
Yeah.
Like 21 Days of Prayer, that one of the things I love the most is people are coming early in the morning. And you're thinking like people are going to drag in. And I know there's going to be elements of that in all of it. I know there's elements in that in me, even when I'm getting there early in the morning, But there's such like a spirit in the room that just lifts. There's an atmosphere, there's a joy, there's an expectation, there's an anticipation of what God's going to do, how he's going to show up. And every day God shows up in different ways. And I love it. Like, that's just really who God is, the nature of God, right? He doesn't do things always exactly the same. There's a freshness.
Yeah.
So I love it. People are coming in the room. You're like, I don't know if this is Sunday or first Wednesday because it's like 7 a.m. in the morning and people are just excited to be here.
Yeah, it's special. It's special. I know for me, it's like one of my favorite things we do as a church, but also one of my favorite sort of resets for my own heart and for my own life, like focused time. Let's talk a little bit about personal prayer, because that's really part of our 21 days is to not just let people listen to leaders pray.
Mm-hmm.
We have this whole 20-minute free time of prayer where people are writing down their needs, they're walking, they're kneeling, they're kind of getting off out of the stands and on the field and growing in prayer. And talk to me about what's the hardest part of praying? I'm sure you always just have a guitar and are feeling a moment of prayer.
No. Honestly, I think the hardest part of praying is starting.
Yeah.
I really think it's just getting to a place where you just do it. And you start it. I think that is one of the hardest things to do. And I think the reason why it's hard, and you mentioned it before, I think the enemy wants to keep us from that.
Yeah.
Wants to keep us occupied, busy, wants to keep us, just full of information. Nothing wrong with information, nothing wrong with podcasts and books to read and services to go to. But I think individual prayer time, there's so much power in it. And so because there's so much power in it, I think the enemy wants to even keep you from starting it.
Yeah.
And I think once you start it, I think sometimes that first 5 minutes is like, what am I praying about? What am I doing? And I think for me, I've just realized sometimes in those first 3 minutes of prayer, I am just waiting on the Lord. I know he's there, but like it's my way of welcoming him in and just saying, you know what, instead of me just jumping in with my needs or the things I need to talk about or all the stuff in my life right now isn't working out perfectly, I'm going to wait on the Lord. And I think that is one of the things that helps me just get into that personal prayer time. That's
really good.
Yeah.
For me, I try to start with like Thanksgiving. It kind of revs up the engine, and of course we enter in God's presence through the blood of Christ. And so I'll think of like Psalm 103: "Bless the Lord, O my soul.
Yeah.
Forget not all His benefits." And then I start to rehearse them. He forgives all my sins, so I have salvation. He heals all my diseases.
Yeah.
We have healing. He redeems my life from the pit. I have redemption. He crowns me with love and compassion. I have a security in Him. And there's something about you start enjoying prayer quickly.
That's right.
When you're rehearsing how good God is and how wonderful He's been to you.
I love that.
And so it just it even if you're not in a good mode, when you start remembering the faithfulness of God, the cross of Jesus, the blood of, and all of a sudden you're like in a mode where you're feeling a connection and communication with God.
Isn't that true? Gratitude just changes it. When you come with a grateful heart, a gratitude heart, it changes it. It makes me think about just the fact that even in Psalms 23, it says He prepares a table before us in the presence of our enemies. So you have this idea of like, what do I bring to the table? And I think when you think about time with the Lord, it's not a potluck, like we're not all bringing something. We have nothing to bring. He provides everything.
Wow.
But what we come with is gratitude. Like that's what we bring. I love that, Pastor Brandon. I love that we start off, no matter how you're feeling. And you say this a lot, right? Like choices lead and feelings follow. And so when you choose to bring gratitude, man, there's something that God does in your life that you just can't explain until you're living in it.
Yeah. And I think that's like my heart for myself and for our church and for people that are in our community to have a real relationship with God.
Yeah.
And I mean, people talk about church or disciplines and all that, but there is nothing like talking to the God of the universe, that we actually get invited to have a relationship with him. I was thinking about, like, the disciples are following Jesus, and of all the things they can ask him to teach them, they don't say, teach us to do miracles or teach us to heal people or teach us to preach. They see something about Jesus that moves them so deeply. Luke 11:1, teach us to pray. There's something about his life that's so tethered to prayer. And I know we feel that even in our own church as it's growing, and it's like beyond, in some ways, what we would have thought could happen.
That's right.
We're so aware of our need for God. And to me, prayer is the difference between, like, the best I can do and the best God can do.
That's right.
Until we've laid that foundation of prayer, how do we move into the future things of it?
That's
It's
so
like
true.
surrendering, sacrifice, laying it down, saying, and then there's this intangible of the power of the Holy Spirit that is at work. And it's almost like God putting his hand on our back and helping us run further, faster, stronger. And it's a divine enablement, that prayer Jabez prays in Chronicles, and may your hand be upon me, that the hand of the Lord lets us accomplish things we couldn't accomplish on our own. And I think even some of the things that have been fun in the last couple of years in the church have really just been God setting his hand on the church and doing something surprising.
And I feel that it's 100% attached to the prayer culture at our church. And I think that that's not just for our church, it's for every individual, it's for every family, it's for every person that chooses for prayer to be a first response and not a last resort. You just really begin to see how that, and I love how you said it. God, he wants to have that personal relationship with us.
Yeah.
He loves that one-on-one time. And sometimes it's hard, like you said, sometimes a little difficult, but it is so sweet and special. Even Jesus going away to lonely places to pray with the Father, or he's in the garden, he's like, stay awake, and he's off in the distance. I mean, this prayer relationship we have with God, the corporate side of it, 21 Days of Prayer is so amazing. But I think what that does is it spills over into our individual prayer life.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. We try to also incorporate, I know as dads, like a way to connect our kids to prayer. And so we do this little kids guides. And then one of my favorite things we do is everyone fills out a card, but the kids fill out a card that says, this year I'm believing God for. And there's nothing like, we'll have them all over the stage, but we'll have 2 walls of just kids' prayer needs. My favorite was last year, Katie shows me a picture of this kid. His prayer request is just a piece of pizza. It's colored in the card, you know what I mean? And you're like, okay, maybe God will answer that prayer. But like other ones will be like really deep and powerful. And like you can even feel sometimes there's something about getting around kids that pray, because they aren't sophisticated enough to know God can't do it, like there's like humble, innocent, blind trust in God.
That's right. I remember a day actually in 21 Days of Prayer where you brought a student up to pray.
Yeah.
And, in that moment, we didn't know exactly how that was going to go, what he was going to say, but we just felt the Lord leading. And that's what 21 Days of Prayer happens a lot of times on those days. But that day in particular, he prayed such a powerful prayer that the whole room just, you see this childlike faith, this desire for more of God. And it just came forth from this young kid. It's really special.
I remember that. He'd been coming every day. I guess we owed him.
I know.
It's like, is this going to go good? And then remember, it was like legitimately like strong. It's like, man, he should give the devotion tomorrow.
Yeah. I still remember, I feel like he said something that was along the lines of like, you can leave God, but he'll never leave you.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, so powerful. Such a good revelation insight from a young kid.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So we're heading into a new year, making new resolutions, trying to find a discipline in prayer, and trying to make space for God at the start of the year. And I think that's just what I'm thinking of heading into this year is, God, I have an agenda, but I wrote it in pencil. And so you're free to rewrite any piece of it, and lead and guide and direct. What would you say to somebody who's getting ready? Prayer is hard for them. It feels, we use this phrase New Testament prayer a lot to try to say like, this is not like a muted, dreary have to prayer thing. This is like we get to talk to the God of the, like how would we speak to somebody saying, when I think of prayer, I think of dull, I think of slow, I think of tiring,
Yeah. I think it comes back to what you said. The disciples literally asked Jesus, teach us how to pray like you.
Yeah.
Like, teach us how to do that. So here's the reason why I think they asked that question. It's because they were around someone. They were around people that had that lifestyle of prayer. They were around people that had that desire to pray.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, I think we can come up with like a whole list of like, hey, here's what you could do, right? Here's the things you can do, or here's the ways you can do it. Turn on this song and that music. Here's what I would say to really answer that. Like the one way I'd say, get yourself around people and a culture of people that love to pray.
Yeah. It
And I
spills
think
over,
it
right?
just spills over on you.
Yeah.
And that's why I think 21 Days of Prayer is so special, because it's like, regardless of where you're at in your walk or your prayer life, like just jump in. No matter if it's you're the last day of it, if it's just a Saturday, whatever it is, like jump in. And there's going to be things that are going to spill over into your life that are going to change not just your life, but it's going to change your family, places you work, places you go.
That's so good. A pastor asked me the other day, they're just launching a prayer season in January. He's like, what would you tell to people in my church that maybe don't want to pray? And I was like, I would say to people, if there's nothing in your life that overwhelms you, there's nothing in your life bigger than you. There's no relationship that needs fixed. If you don't have anything bigger than you, then just don't come to prayer.
Wow.
But for the rest of us who realize, that raising teenagers is complicated, and living for God, for the rest of us, we just recognize our own need.
Right.
And so, to me, a prayerless heart is just, as kind as I can say it, it's a proud heart.
Wow.
That thinks, I have enough.
Yeah.
I'm good enough. I'm strong enough.
Mm.
And I think that is, man, God's looking for the humble heart that says, I definitely know me.
That's good.
And I don't have enough. That's why I'm connecting myself to God, not out of have to, but because I know me.
Yeah.
I need him.
No, I love that. I think even in my own life, I've learned that I need to have certain areas of my life that are unknown and are mysterious, if you will, so that it gives me reasons to trust. If I know every single thing, every single move that's going to be made, every turn or twist or whatever, then where's the enduring faith in that, right? Like where's the endurance I need? Like I need to rely on the Lord every single day. Like Proverbs says, trust in the Lord and lean not on what you think or the outcomes you figured out, how you calculated it. So I love that. I think it's so true. You need to have a reason to trust, a reason to lean into the Lord.
Yeah. Well, I thought it would be weird to end today without praying. Feel pretty bogus. But I wonder if we just take not long. We won't do it as long as we would. But we're going to try to just look to God and let the camera roll and just invite his presence here for just a minute before we go. We're in the middle of the start of New Year, and just how we need him in every way. I'll start us. God, we're thankful for Jesus, who's made a way to us that we can even talk to you through your son's blood, that we're your sons, that we're forgiven, that you care about us, God, that you care about the words I'm about to say even more than I do, that you care about our needs. God, would you teach us to pray this year? Teach us to know your heart. Teach us to have your mind. We humble ourselves, God, before you. We want to learn to have ears to listen, increase our ability, not just to talk to you, God, but to hear you and to listen to you and to communicate with you. We make all the space in our life we can for you to do whatever you want to do.
Father, we thank you so much that we have access. We have access. We can enter into the throne room with boldness, God. We can enter in with our hearts lifted, excited, God. We have access to you. So, Father, I pray over everybody that's listening, everybody who's in 21 Days of Prayer right now, as they step into 2024, God, as we're in this new season, if you will, Lord, that we would just know, God, like Philippians says, I pray, God, that no one would be anxious, but in everything through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, they would give their request to you. And it says the peace of God that passes all understanding would guard our hearts and our minds. I pray that over everybody, Lord, in 21 Days of Prayer, all that you're doing in the life of our church and what is yet to come, Jesus, we ask this in your name.
Praying God's best over your life, your family for 2024. We love you guys.